Hey guys, what you're about to hear is a previously unreleased members-only episode, Night Siege. It's a dive into true terrifying events that began in the summer of 1981 in rural northern Ohio, where a family was left to defend themselves from a barrage of horrific creatures, shadow entities, and anomalous assaults from the sky. If you dig this episode, you can find over 100 episodes just like it by becoming a member of the expansion. Check the video description for a direct link. Welcome in, guys.
Hi. Welcome.
Welcome to the expansion. Tonight, we journey back in time to the quiet, rural landscape of northern Ohio, a place we're familiar with. This is in the summer of 1981, though. This is a story of a multi-night siege where a rural community is set upon by giant red-eyed beasts, luminescent shadow beings with blue beam torches,
Very interesting.
and strange, ominous flying craft. In Rome Township, the summer nights were illuminated by bizarre lights and terrible screams, and gunfire rolled like thunder through the landscape.
I feel like I'm there. Beautiful. I wish I was.
We're not too far from there.
Hey, John, does Ashtabula County sound familiar to you?
It does.
It's just I think it's just beneath kind of Conneaut area where Camp Luther is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
So it's just a little inland from there, just south. But it's
Interesting.
pretty rural out there in this area. It's called Rome Township. Very isolated, which is a great environment for what's about to unfold.
Yeah, pretty crazy series of events. Reminds me a lot of Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And Chris, do you want to mention how you came across this? Was kind of synchronistic.
Oh, yeah.
This book, this almost pamphlet, really. It's 40 pages of just straightforward, just the facts, ma'am.
From the researcher. Yeah, this is kind of synchronistic. Felt kind of meant to be because we were doing the Hudson Valley UFOs, and the drone stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I came across a book called Night Siege by Bob Pratt and J. Allen Hynek.
Sounds like a Steven Seagal movie.
It does. I bet it is.
Isn't
I bet
there-
if you Googled it, there would be a Night
There's
Siege.
like some kind of siege he was doing at one point on VHS.
Under Siege?
Under
Under
that-
Siege?
Was that him?
October Siege?
But anyway, so this book, Night Siege, was by Bob Pratt, Allen Hynek. But when I was looking for it online on Amazon, I came across a really interesting looking, very almost pamphlet-like book called Night Siege by, who's this guy again?
The Northern Ohio UFO-Creature Invasion by Dennis Pilichis.
Yeah, and I was like, Northern Ohio, what are the chances? And it's just, even the cover, you could tell it was going to line up with a lot of stuff we've covered, which at one time seemed very unique, like the red-eyed, tall, hairy creatures. But there's so many things that cross over with like Skinwalker Ranch, like the shadow beings, paranormal activity rolling in with Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings. And again, this is back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
It kind of builds off the flap of the 70s, but I was okay, we got to get into this someday. So this seemed like the perfect time to do a deep dive.
Yeah. And what I really love about this book, Night Siege by Dennis Pilichis, this guy was boots on the ground.
Yeah.
He was down there for 4 long months of investigation, collaboration, and outside consultation with different experts and enthusiasts at the time. He used investigative methodology to collect tons of data, quote, extensive interviews and on-site recordings, all on cassette tape, plus extensive photographic documentation of ground effects and footprints of various kinds.
That's awesome.
In fact, the guy who wrote the foreword of the book, Eric Schwartz, MD, notes the author, quote, skillfully boiled down hundreds of hours of data into a detailed, documented, coherent narrative. And Schwartz goes on to describe the book as a, quote, sober if not at times sizzling, verbatim prose. And it is. You guys will hear this. In the way that the stories are written out, they're very matter-of-fact, nothing flashy, no creepypasta, but sensational nonetheless, simply because of the nature of the encounters. So I really like that he didn't try to color the narrative or put too much added imagery. With a story like this, it's just, I think, almost more hard-hitting to hear the matter-of-fact, count by count, what went down, and let the reader visualize, or in this case, the listener.
For sure.
One thing to mention I thought was particularly credible was when Dennis went down there to interview the family. He didn't say anything about Bigfoot because it's important to remember too, this is 1981.
Oh, right.
Obviously pre-internet, pre-Monster Quest, or any, shows on the television like that.
I mean, he had In Search Of, but yeah, not like a mainstream topic at the time.
I mean, of course there was, knowledge about Bigfoot in general and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Willow Creek already, but not everybody had heard about the phenomenon.
Yeah, and the ability to corroborate and contextualize characteristics of creatures like we've covered. We did with Monsters Among Us. We talked about
The desert?
yeah,
Borrego Triangle?
Borrego Triangle. And before that, we've done episodes in that area in the Southwest of these red-eyed, hairy things came down. I remember abducted that couple in their RV in one account.
Oh, yeah.
But these, anyways, point being, this family had no preconception of these kinds of entities being out there at all. This is a isolated experience, but not isolated in its connection to these other events. So it does seem like there's some thread of some reality going on here. And back in the 1980s, you just wouldn't have been able to pull out and have this contextualized view of what's been going on around the country. Even in certain areas in Ohio, you wouldn't have access to that kind of corroborative information. So that makes it even more credible.
Oh, for sure.
In fact, here's a quote from the introduction of the book where he kind of touches on this exact thing from the time reference of 1981. Quote, "Many people do not have access to much of this sort of data. For the thread of consistency to be woven around these cases so tightly, for it only to function as coincidence, is extremely unlikely." And again, for that time, that's completely true.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pinpoint that, Jared, what you said. That's what's interesting to me is that the researcher here who went down made sure not to use terms like Bigfoot, flying saucer, because he heard what was going on,
Right.
the high strangeness there. And I love how they refer to these things. They're not calling them big feet or Sasquatch. They're saying,
Right.
calling them critters, right?
Yeah,
That's weird. I thought that was a weird terminology for something that's like 8 feet tall.
Yeah, well, there wasn't the concept of Bigfoot on this farm, in this region. A lot of people hadn't heard of Bigfoot yet. So it was like, what do you call these? You call them monsters or critters or, you know.
exactly. Well, I love that he let them describe it without saying anything about aliens,
Yeah.
Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and yeah, critter, it is a weird, you usually think of a small, especially because of those movies that came out. But I think it was just a general term back then, especially in Appalachia and Southern Ohio.
Unknown furry creature.
Yeah. Or Northern Ohio. I keep forgetting. There is a Rome, Ohio that I get this confused with, which is right near,
Adams County, right?
yeah, is that where it is? Down south?
I think so.
Anyway, so this is cool when our author gets wind of this, what's going on the property, Dennis Pilichis, because I believe he's a local. When he goes in, he basically says that he's like just a local guy interested in, what's going on and wants to talk to him. Doesn't say like he's a researcher into the paranormal or anything. Lets him describe it. And this is what he finds on the property, which is just, I think, such a kind of a cool scene. He says, quote, "When I first came on the scene, I found obvious things right off that substantiated their story as presented in this report. There were 2 ladders up against the family house. Up on the roof were coffee cups, flashlights, and coats. The yard was covered with spent shotgun shells. The family was in a great state of agitation and stress, appeared to be honest, troubled, and confused by what they were going through." So that's the scene, and we get into the stories here, you'll understand why there are ladders on the roof and coffee cups up there to keep them up all night,
Yeah, I love
fighting off whatever's coming at them.
Reminds me of Tremors. That
Yeah.
scene where they're up on top of like the hardware store. Because
Yeah.
the things are coming up from out of the ground. Yeah, you're under siege. You're going to be on a place of high safety to fire from.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an interesting detail. But yeah, we haven't even gotten into the stories yet. But that's so he's on the scene discovering this stuff.
So before he gets down there, things have been building up. There were early warnings that something was going on in and around the property. Something was there.
I think people all around the county were experiencing stuff.
Yeah, and he comes to find this out later. Nearby Rock Creek, there's another encounter that he is informed of by a woman up there. But about a year before kind of the main events kick off here, in the woods near the property, or on the property, a deer was found. Its side was cut open as if by claws. Approximately 14 months prior, the 16-year-old son woke up screaming, seeing a, quote, creature face in his bedroom window, which of course the family initially wrote off as a nightmare. But as events would unfold, that would start to be seen as something a little more ominous that they should have been worried about.
Always believe your kids.
Yeah.
99.9% of the time, it's a monster.
It usually is.
I would be scared having kids that way because I would always believe them.
I know.
I'd always be like, God,
Where's the monster?
There's a ghost.
Think about that. Like if my son Charlie was like, Dad, there's a figure in the closet I'm seeing it. And I'm like, well, we're moving.
Yeah.
Honey, hey, we're at the Holiday Inn.
I'd have to call like another father to come over and check.
Another father. Grandfather's coming. Don't worry. It's going to put us both at ease.
Dad'll be like, just take some
No,
ginkgo
I'm
biloba.
joking. I would obviously protect the child, but it would
Right.
I would just be more susceptible to like believing them.
Right.
Yeah. I'd be interested. I'd be like, please be a monster. And show me where, maybe not demon, but monster.
Yeah. There's that thin line.
Yeah. What I love about cases like this is, another thing that occurred leading up to kind of the main event This ties in a group of people that I think are usually thought of as pretty staunch realist pragmatists, the Amish.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, I'm talking about the Amish because in May of that year, before this all kicked off, there was a group of Amish cutting wood well into the woods beyond the kind of tree line on Robert's property. Robert being the father in the story of the family who lives out here. So they'd hauled like 600 pounds of horse feed to the work area because they had 2 working horses that needed that food. But then the next morning, the feed bags were found torn up and cut open. Again, as if done by claws. Just like that deer they found earlier in the woods.
Didn't something also attack one of their horses? I thought
Yes.
that was the detail that was really important.
Well, that detail is coming up, Mr. Jump the Gun.
Oh, sorry. No, you're
So they bring
going
more
over it.
feed, of course, to the work site because the horses need to eat. They're working hard. And that day, Robert could hear, coming from the woods, shots ring out from one of the Amish fellows' 9-shot pistols. Now, eventually, the Amish emerged from the woods with one of their horses, with the horse's side cut open. The Amish were obviously upset, but they didn't want to talk about it. They told Robert that they had, quote, been shooting at snakes. But obviously, something's wrong with the horse. It's slashed in the side, claw marks 1.5 inches deep into the body.
That's not snakes.
Right. So the Amish, they're hardworking people. They're like, well, horse may have been attacked by some sort of thing, but we need to get the job done. So they brought in another horse, and they worked for a little while, then finally left the area, but they left all of their equipment behind because they were in such a hurry to get out of there.
I like that detail.
And they didn't come back for their materials and equipment until over a month later. So yeah, that's kind of the setup of like what's going on this property.
Yeah, well, that takes us to our first account that happened on this farm. And so at this point, all these strange occurrences are happening, discoveries were taking place on the land, but no one's really seen what's been behind these attacks. So this takes us to our first account here. This happens on June 25th in 1981. And this is called It Was After the Ducks.
June 25th, 1981. Late this night, Robert and his boys noticed the ducks were acting up in the front yard by the pine tree near the house. They saw a thing in the front yard. It had 2 big red glowing eyes, was on all 4s, and was after the ducks. There was no body detail, just a black form with 2 big red glowing eyes. One of the boys shined the flashlight in its eyes as Robert shot it with a .410 shotgun single shot. The creature screamed, and it went flying down the field in a westerly direction. The scream was described as one moment a high pitch, the next moment a low pitch. It was a terrifying scream. Robert said he knew he hit it because he shot it right between its red glowing eyes. Before he could get off a second shot, it was out of gunshot range. They lost sight of it, but could still hear it screaming going down through the farm field. The estimated size of the critter was 7 to 8 feet tall. The family was naturally upset by this encounter and stayed up most of the night, wondering if this thing was going to come back.
Terrifying.
Creepy.
Yeah.
By the way, there's going to be a lot of shooting and screaming in this episode.
But mostly monster screams.
This is a siege.
Yeah, this is just the beginning of the siege.
Yeah. It's not even quite the siege yet. It's not the siege nights, but it's building up.
Now, did they mention that this creature had red eyes?
Yes, glowing red eyes.
So it's interesting because you'll hear a few different types of entities that appear. There's a more humanoid kind of entity that seems to be glowing occasionally with a white or blue glow.
Right, like shadow figures, sometimes luminescent. We'll get to those guys.
Right, just shadowy black. But it's interesting. One thing you don't hear a lot in, I feel like, stories, this sounds so intimate and violent, as opposed to a lot of Bigfoot encounters where there's a lot of shooting, a lot of getting hit and like whimpering and running away and coming back. It's like, that's why it feels like almost like a battle. Like these things keep coming, but you hear them, unlike a lot of Sasquatch experiences where there's no effective bullets, which that does happen in this, like there's no effect. But then there are times when these things sounds like they're actually hit, which is interesting.
Yeah, we'll get into more of that as we go through these stories because the physics don't seem to make sense, which is, always the question about like, what is the purpose behind these sorts of attacks?
Right.
But again, hairy creatures, glowing in the dark, on all 4s at first, that's always eerie to me. And then not on all 4s, reminds me of Dogman phenomena a little bit. Invulnerable to gunfire, as we talked about, very skinwalkery.
But then it gets more personal because on June 26th of 1981,
just the next day,
the dogs get involved.
Oh, yes.
And I feel for the dog.
Don't worry, he doesn't get eaten.
No.
Better not, or I'm leaving.
We censor those stories.
They don't happen. They're not real.
This I call The Dog Was Terrified. This is encounter number 2 of the siege.
It was about 2 a.m. on a hot summer night in these parts. Robert was watching TV when his dog started raising all kinds of hell, barking very loud, etc. Suddenly, the dog stopped barking and started crying, whimpering. Robert got up and came to the back door and stepped outside with his flashlight. At this point, the dog was trying to dig himself under the push lawnmower. Robert yelled at the dog, but it did not do any good. Then Robert happened to shine his flashlight out back by his hoist. He saw a, quote, thing, similar to a gorilla, standing right next to it. It was black, with 2 bright red eyes. It was looking right at Robert and started making snorting and growling sounds. Robert hit it in the eyes with his flashlight, went down and caught its teeth and face, and then started on down and caught it right in the chest. At this point in the experience, Robert thought he was going to have a heart attack. He ran back into the house, yelled to his boys to get their pants on.
Boys, get your pants on!
While he grabbed his .410 shotgun. He heard the creature start around the back of the house in a westerly direction, so he sneaked out the front door with his 2 boys. At this point, they could hear it hollering and screaming going down the farm field. They jumped into their pickup truck and tried to chase the creature down the road, but lost it at the woodline. They continued down the road to a neighbor's house, leaving the truck running in the driveway. Robert got out and asked if the neighbors had heard or seen anything strange. The response was no. The neighbor's house was not right next door, but down the road a good half a mile or so. Robert and the boys started back to the house, hearing brush breaking on the side of the road near them, although they could not see anything. Suddenly, their pickup truck just stopped running. They had not run out of gas. There was a full tank. The engine died, but the headlights stayed on. Another neighbor was coming down the road, stopped, and asked Robert what the heck he was doing stopped in the middle of the road like he was. At this point, the brush was still breaking, and both now heard it. The neighbor then related that his boys were camping out in the backyard when they came running into the house claiming they heard growling noises and that they had seen something that looked like a bear. They no longer would go out and camp. After a while, they were able to start the truck, still not able to determine why it stopped dead in the first place. They went home and kept a watch all night, but they did not see anything. There you go. It's just such a weird, it gets weirder too. It's just such a weird, I love the, put your pants on, boys! Get out here, now Papa!
It is interesting because what do you do out there? Like, there's something that's like harassing you and your family in the night. You can't just like let it go. You could try to get the police involved at some point, which does happen, but you have to like stand it down.
Well, this point, they're not even sure what it is. You know, I think they're thinking it could still be like a bear, like crazy cocaine bear or something.
Yes, a cocaine bear.
Red eyes? Did they see the red eyes?
Yeah. So
That's
mutant bear.
Pretty weird.
Yeah, that's
Are there any animals with red eyes?
Not self-illuminating. I think that's the key too.
That's the key.
I think some might have eye shine that's red. I don't know if rabbits do. Maybe. In my mind, they do.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
Right.
Definitely in pictures.
Yeah, but other weird stuff too, like the truck dying. That's very UFO related. This is where we start to see these little like other paranormal aspects to what's going on, where there seems to be electrical things happening. That cord that was cut. So after this encounter, remember you said it was by the hoist?
Yeah, the hoist by the barn.
There's an electrical cord going like from the house to the barn and held up by the hoist, and that was severed. And so then does that point to other motivations, strange motivations, higher thinking? What's going on? Are they trying to like, you know, if you're under siege, you're going to want to cut off communication, you know, power, resources.
It sounds like gremlin activity. Destroy. Yeah, because there are a couple other experiences they have regarding that, but that we'll mention that when they pop up in the story. But
Oh, last thing I want to say about right after this story. So in that story, in this experience, when they do talk to one of the neighbor does say that they didn't notice anything overly strange going on, but their boys had come in running the other night because they, quote, had heard what they thought was a bear growling and thought they saw something that looked somewhat like a bear. So large animal activity. Of course, there's no bears in Northern Ohio. So there was some corroboration going on, but it's still leading up to the weirder stuff.
There could be, though, couldn't there?
Yeah, there could be. I mean,
That's true. There have been sightings of black bear.
occasionally.
I mean, they're definitely not common.
They're super.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not supposed to be here. That's the official stance. They're not supposed to be here.
Well, we hunted them all out like in the turn of the century or something. Anyway, so there's not much reprieve for this poor family because just 2 days later, they have another terrifying encounter. And this encounter, this is where new strange entities are witnessed for the first time. And this is when we get into the even more bizarre entities appearing on the property. This happens on June 28th, 1981, shooting at the pond. And this is where the siege really begins.
The siege begins.
June 28th, 1981. On this night, 2 of the family members were supposed to go play music at a local gathering. Because of the events the last few days, the other family members did not want them to leave the house, so they stayed home this night. After it got late, some forms were seen on the woodline. This upset the family members, and they got outright mad over the recent turn of events. They put their youngest boy in the tractor and drove out into the field. As they did this, they noticed out back a black form, waving back and forth some sort of dark blue light. One family member prepared to shoot at this form. As he did so, the light went out, and there was nothing there to shoot at. They continued on out to the clearing with the tractor. As they did so, they started seeing forms and red, glowing eyes. They opened up with their guns and used a full 2 boxes of 12-gauge mag shells. It was during this series of encounters that they shot one of these creatures near the standing water pond on the side of the woodline opening. When it was hit, it fell to the left of the pond, going down on its stomach. At this point, the red glowing eyes of the critter were observed to go down on the ground on the side of the pond with the black form. They kept shooting at it as it was on the ground. They figured they finally had one of these creatures. Not so. All of a sudden, 2 more sets of red glowing eyes were observed coming up to the one on the ground from the back in the woodline. They again opened up with their guns.
So it's starting to get pretty crazy.
Scary.
So at the end of that story, after they are finished firing at it, these creatures kind of take off. These red glowing-eyed creatures take off, one to the east, one to the west. Very chaotic and confusing what's going on.
They're flanking.
They're flanking maybe. At this point, the family members, they thought they were under siege. And they ran back to the house to take cover. But they lose sight of the one that was on the ground. So they stay around the house the rest of the night. And every once in a while, they see these forms running in the woodline. But creepy. So this is we get a better description here of what these things actually look like. And this gets really kind of terrifying. More terrifying than it's been. So estimated size of these things, basically, because they spent a good while firing at these things, seeing them running in and out of the woodline and, flashlights. So they're getting some looks. 9.5 feet tall. And they judged this because at the time, the creature was parallel with the 9-foot tall wood pieces on the 12-foot hoist. So they could estimate the size of at least a couple of their heights. Long and shaggy, black and brown hair, red glowing eyes, as we said, very big. Their eyes are big. This is also creepy. They're not just big creatures, but their eyes are big for their heads. They're about the size of a hard ball, which I think is like a baseball. And these eye sockets are self-luminous. The nose is pushed down flat, big, with
the gorilla-like nostril.
Yeah, gorilla-like. And here, this is creepy. The mouths, apparently,
Oh yeah.
there were visible fangs about 1.5 inches long, sticking up and down. And they were described as shark-like. Shark-like,
Ew.
1.5 inch long fangs pointed up and down, which caused kind of the lower lip to stick out, as you can imagine that.
Shark fangs. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, so triangular, jagged fangs. I'm picturing. It seems very like Frank Frazetta, like sci-fi fantasy, like on some alien planet. You have these giant creatures with these kind of like almost Neanderthal jaws and these big fangs sticking out.
It is bizarre, and there's a aspect to this that as you hear more descriptions coming out, they're not your typical Bigfoot, in my opinion. These sound almost like a mutation or a genetically modified kind of thing, if it's real at all. But
or could just be completely different things. That's the thing, is like in the Dennis mentions this towards the end when we get to his conclusions, but he's like, I think the important thing is to point out here, not all UFOs are UFOs. Not all things that are tall, hairy creatures are a Sasquatch from the Pacific Northwest,
right?
Bound by earthly laws. Who knows what these things were? They weren't necessarily like what you saw at Yellow Creek or whatever. But yeah,
these ain't your Disney World Bigfoot.
That's right.
This ain't your mama's Bigfoot.
This ain't your rural convenience store Bigfoot cutout kind of Bigfoot.
It kind of sounds like that one guy that had probably the scariest encounter with the Dogman and the Bigfoot.
Man Between the Lakes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the more demon-like kind of Bigfoot.
Just the red eyes. And these seem kind of nasty.
They definitely seem aggressive, but also it just seems like they're just bothering them. Like I feel like
just playing with them.
They could destroy them. I mean, they're 10 feet tall. Like it seems like some kind of.
They're 8.
9.5 feet. Well, I mean, they vary, the different ones that we're seeing.
Okay. Well, regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. At that point, it's like, how big was the house that landed on you?
Here's an example. I think the tallest one, John, was 12 feet. Here's an illustration.
No way.
Of a comparison. Yeah.
Oh, dude, and the scariest thing?
Dude.
Oh, you can see, John, you can see the teeth there. If you look carefully, you can see sort of the shark fang teeth it has.
Pictures in the show notes. But dude, the scariest thing in this description to me that popped out in one of these stories is the fact that it drops down and crawls. Like imagining like a 12-foot monster, but it's like charging you on all fours.
Like with red glowing eyes.
As a humanoid crawling thing, it just seems like it just wants to terrify you to death.
Straight out of hell.
Yeah, I think I would have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely feel like you were in a bad dream.
Oh yeah, nightmare. How would you even like ration? I might be frozen in place. I could see me being frozen in place.
Chris, you are so courageous. You would do more than that.
I am a courageous man. I have my bow now and my arrows.
My bow and arrow. And I've recently had it strung.
I have.
My friend Brian.
Yes. We know a lot of you listening out there have had your own experiences. Like maybe you've caught a fleeting shadow in the corner of your vision, or a whisper on the wind that seemed just a little too clear. Well, if you're looking for answers, I've got a podcast you're going to want to check out. Sightings is a new series that invites you inside the world's most mysterious unexplained events, from epic encounters with legendary creatures like Bigfoot, to your lesser-known phenomena like the Polaroid Ghost Writer, where a ghost allegedly communicated with a pair of roommates by writing on the exposures of thousands of Polaroid photos. Love that story. But one of the unique things about sightings, and we certainly appreciate this here in the Hole, is that they put you right in the action with heart-pounding sonic storytelling. One great example of this is their very first episode, where they totally nail the immersion of being at an alien battle on a remote Kentucky farm. From the secrets of Skinwalker Ranch to the shocking truth behind the Mothman prophecies, Sightings is your podcast to the extraordinary. Look for it now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tell them Belief Hole sent you. You won't regret it.
I just want to say
get to the thing you were talking about, the unique.
Yeah, the mutation. There's an aspect coming up in a story towards the end. Why I'm saying it sounds like something might have genetically created these things and something went wrong, because there's a description aspect to one of these entities seen in nearby Rock Creek that is just an odd.
You always go so far out there so now they're being created.
He has an eyeball on the side of his head, and the other eye is in like the center of his head. Yeah, something is wrong with it just sounds like a messed up creature.
It could just be how these things evolve on other planets.
3 toes. Okay, let's just keep going. I feel like I'm going to have myself.
Government Black Ops project.
That's what I'm saying. Or PSYOP.
Bigfoot super soldiers.
Well, you see these humanoid figures along with these things make you wonder, is this all some kind of experiment?
Do they hear a door creaking open?
Right now?
No, I mean, Was it the land between the lakes where they heard
Oh, yeah.
like
in the
something
forest.
the creaking metallic door or something that...
Like into another world, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Or like a government Black Ops underground project.
That's true.
An underground facility.
It's metal.
Well, it's interesting because these things started appearing after they started developing
The land.
gas wells on the property. Like, is there some connection with opening up the land?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Disturbing the phenomena.
Definitely sounds possible.
Yeah. Especially if you go back to folklore and nature spirits. This is obviously very
You
extreme.
kicked a hornet's nest.
That's right.
Exactly.
The last thing I wanted to say about the description was just there was an interesting detail made. The chests had no nipples or breasts, but they had
bummer.
small, I know, right? But they had small white patches about 50-cent sized.
That's weird.
Anyway, that's the end of the description. I just wanted to get that in there because that's important, I think, to really visualize what these things were. And again, sounds so extreme, so crazy. But again, there are a lot of patterns here that line up in other places.
Right.
Very bizarre.
But a unique kind of creature. With
And they're not, this is the other thing too, is they call the police. There are police reports. So they're not like, if they were hoaxing anything. First of all, they're firing real ammo into the woods at whatever these things are. So if they're obviously not people in suits. If they are, they would have died. They would,
Yeah, once you start shooting at people, I'm pretty sure the prank would stop.
Exactly.
Right.
They wouldn't be coming back over and over. And there it gets even, the craziness gets even weirder where you just, I don't know how you would even fake this stuff, especially in the 1970s, 80s.
Well, and there were 15 people that witnessed this activity at different times. 10 people, I think, during the siege.
Including police and researchers at different times.
I'm not sure that I don't think the police witnessed anything other than the terrified state of the witnesses, the family. But they did come out twice in one night.
Footprints, I think footprints and stuff. But
yeah, some distorted prints, but it was hard to make out exactly what was happening. Of course, when the authorities get there, it's always...
Yeah, so let's get to that real quick. The footprints, this is interesting. John, here's the first footprints they find. 3 toes.
3 toes.
And look at these, 7 inches across. And this is just the front of the footprint, not the heel.
Pictures will be in the show notes, guys, of the actual molds.
Oh, weird. So that's just the front of the footprint?
Now, John, imagine, so that's 7 inches across the top, and that's just the top. Here's an example of the full print they find after a later encounter. That's the full print. 3 toes.
That looks like a dinosaur footprint.
14 inches. That is weird looking, yeah.
So giant 3-toed footprints, and the details of these prints are interesting. So after Dennis and the family, they search the field, they find a trail of these large, almost circular footprints, the first ones here, which I think are just without the heel. They're 3-toed, 7 to 8 inches across. The middle toe seemed to, quote, sink deeper. There were over 40 impressions, so they found 40 of these tracks with 6-foot strides. So, like the height of me, basically.
Laying down.
That's how far these things were striding. It suggested, obviously, bipedal, and that even though it was on all fours when it was first seen, it could go bipedal. And then there were points, this is always important, there were points where the trail had voids, where no prints appeared. So again, like disappearing, reappearing, phasing in, phasing out. And this was all virgin ground, so there was no corruption of the land.
Yeah, there were no human footprints nearby when they came across these. And this was verified by multiple witnesses who investigated. I think our author, Dennis, as well as, I forget the name of the fellow researcher that came down.
Oh yeah, I'll introduce him in a bit because he comes in later. But yeah, I just wanted to share those prints because, again, very unique. This isn't your typical Bigfoot, as we were saying, as John said.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, not your Disneyland Bigfoot.
It's not your mama's Bigfoot.
That's right. And then the black forms, did those come up in this last story? They did, right? These strange black figures that come in and out of the woodline, they're humanoid.
Yeah, the black forms had like a dark, which is such a weird description, a dark blue light.
Yeah.
At night, you have a dark blue light. That's a weird.
But they're black, but they're almost like they're self-illuminated on the perimeter of their body. And then oftentimes before these things appear, there's flashes of blue light. Does that indicate like an entering into this reality?
Well, it also mentions that they are waving at some point what seemed like
blue flashlights or lanterns. Yeah, some sort of beam of light. It's just just like the highest of high strangeness, basically.
Yeah, how are they involved with these red identities? Are they their keepers? Are they projecting these things?
Yeah.
What's going on?
And so I'd all have this linked. I'm not going to go over them right now, but there were 2 police reports filed from June 29th, one at 5 a.m. and one again at 11 p.m. came back. And
same day.
Yeah. So those will be in there, but basically going over the same things seen and heard. But let's set up this next encounter. Now things are about to pop off because this is the night, July 1st, 1981, that a storm of strangeness hits the property. This is when I think it gets super, super weird. It's been weird But now we're going to get glowing horses and all kinds of stuff.
Yes, glowing horses.
This I called the beacons, the battle, and the Trojan horse.
As the days went on, the family spent a lot of time up on the roof, keeping watch. 2 family members were up on the roof keeping watch. Later in the night, they noticed lights that could be seen hovering over the top of the back tree line.
You see that?
There were 4 objects or lights. The 4 lights were spaced along the entire wood line and were changing color. They were red one minute, blue the next, yellow the next, and then something that looked like black. They looked like huge oil tanks, somewhat square and box-like. The family members witnessed a bright light, white in color, shine down on the ground from one of these objects. The white light was beyond the wood line. It was estimated that the white light made an area the size of a half-acre glow, as bright as day. About the same time, high-pitched screams could be heard coming from the edge of the tree line. The objects or lights at this point just went out. As they did so, forms could be seen running by the edge of the trees. The forms were out of gunshot range, so more guns were brought from the house. Every time various family members thought they could see one of the forms, they would shoot, and the forms would scream. As they watched the wood line, they started seeing red glowing eyes standing there in the trees and watching their every move. They would shoot at the red eyes with no effect, at the same time seeing forms running to the left and to the right of the set of the eyes. They shot at the forms, hitting them and hearing them scream. While up on the roof, later, they noticed 2 forms with red glowing eyes come up from the side of the field and stand to the side of the barn. They tried to talk to them from up on the roof, waited 5 minutes, and then lowered the boom on them. They screamed, yelled, and ran off. At one point during the night, while taking turns shooting at these forms as they ran around on the wood line, they looked out again and saw their horse standing there out in the field. At this time, their horse was locked up in the barn, had not gotten out, and was not in that field. But the form looked like his horse. They knew something was wrong, and that even though it looked like their horse out there, it was not their horse. They knew it was not their horse, and 2 people at once took aim and shot at the, quote, horse. This thing then hollered, growled, and took off toward the northeast part of the field.
Okay.
Imposter horses.
Shape-shifting
Yeah.
ungulates.
Well, it makes you, actually, that's a good point. It makes you wonder, because these black forms, these kind of humanoid figures that are self-illuminating, this horse is described almost in the same way with the self-illumination on the edges.
Oh, yeah.
Are these things turning into things to try to trick the people who are camped out on their roof?
Yeah, are they all the same thing? Some kind of evil fairy force?
I don't know. I don't even know what to think about. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting beyond just your typical Bigfoot as far as like powers. I don't know if I've ever heard of shape-shifting Bigfoot or mirage Bigfoot.
No, well, that's the thing is I think they're different. Like,
Yeah.
so you have these big hairy entities with the red glowing eyes, and then you have these black shadow figure humanoid things that are glowing. And those are the things that seem to be, I mean, connected to this horse somehow. The ones with the blue beams, like those, I think those are separate things than the red-eyed hairy things.
Okay.
They seem to be, as far as the way they manifest.
If you look at this image here, John, this is kind of what these things are looking like.
I couldn't tell just because they're dark. I mean, I didn't know if they
Exactly. That's kind of the thing is that they remind me of shadow people, entities, except they are definitely a little more like interdimensional sounding with the
glow.
Again, they're preceded with with flashes of blue light.
Huh.
But the interesting thing is they're seen from different perspectives at different points. So these things are like physical in the 3D world because they're triangulated.
When they get shot at and they fall down.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Also, like they're obviously connected with the red-eyed things, whatever they are, the 3-toed Bigfoot type entities. But they could be potentially all the same. If they can shapeshift into a horse and then, get shot and skedaddle out of the woods,
Who knows if that's what's going on? Like, I don't know.
yeah.
You could argue that these shadow figures are maybe just from another time and they're somehow seeping into here, and maybe the horse is just their horse and it just looks alien because it's, not quite on our level of reality. Who knows?
Oh, it's the shadow people's horse?
Yeah.
It's just rode into
It's
town?
just from the same dimension. I don't know.
All I know is it would be terrifying to be up on that roof, seeing these things come in.
Yeah.
It's just trying to put yourself in that perspective. With all the witnesses there,
Very exciting.
these people believe something happened to them. That would be terrifying.
Yes. All right, let's bring out the owl. This is the Owl Cometh. This is the same night. I kind of split it into two reads here, but this is the same night, July 1st, 1981, and it's going to get even crazier. Here we go.
They went back up on the roof. About 3:30 a.m., in the cornfield across the street, a bright white light appeared. One family member happened to be looking that way as it appeared. He said he felt the light from the glow hit him in the head. He felt as though he was about to lose consciousness, began to stagger, and almost fell off the roof. Another member of the family saw what was going on and fired a pumpkin ball, a rifled slug for a shotgun, at the light. The light went out. The experience gave the individual who was stuck by the beam a headache for the rest of the day. Things got stranger, and the series of close encounters was not over. About an hour later, something like a red-hot coal, but bigger in size, came down and landed in the tree east of the house. This was directly across the street from the cornfield, where the light appeared that hit the one family member in the head with the beam of light. The red glowing ball was shot at. It jumped down a branch and turned into a small animal-like creature, something like an owl. They continued to shoot at it, and it continued to jump down branches until it fell out of the tree entirely and onto the ground. At this point, the thing got up and ran down the wood line on all fours. The family ran over to the tree, which was almost directly on the wood line, and saw a depression in the soft field grass, where it looked like something heavy had fallen out of the tree onto the ground, leaving an obvious impression. It might be noted that during all this going on during the night, at some point an object smaller in size flew directly over the farmhouse at about 200 feet. It was shaped like a cigar box. The family members on the roof at the time noticed it had blue lights around it, with a red brighter light in the middle. The object appeared to come from the backwoods, up over the woodline, flying slowly in its trajectory over the house and across the street in a southeast direction over the cornfields. The father had one of his sons brace his feet. He shot at the object as it went overhead. When he shot, he aimed for the red light. It went out as he did so. He thought he hit it, as he heard the sound of a bullet hitting something like glass. The object continued on its flight path with no apparent effect from the shot fired, only that the red light was no longer glowing. No member of the family heard any sound come from the object and were sure it was not any sort of airplane or man-made device.
What's going on?
It's so wild, dude.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of the most wild stories as far as Bigfoot phenomena and adjacent activity.
Yeah, this might be the most. I mean, there's just so many strange...
I said Land Between the Lakes was definitely more
Yeah,
intense.
but you only had Dogmen and Bigfoot in that. This is like flying
this
craft.
is more bizarre for paranormal. The other one was just way more terrifying.
No, that's true. It seems like they could have attacked and killed any of these people, but never do. They just allow themselves to kind of get shot, scream, and run away.
Yeah.
None of these people have said they felt like it was like demonic evil presence, do they?
Well, actually, that's a good question, John, because we're coming up to a point in the story where they decide to create a sort of trap.
Oh, yes.
For these things to lure them. And along with loaded guns and some sort of acid they bring to the stakeout, essentially, they also bring a crucifix. Because at this point, after all this, they're just not sure if it's not demonic.
Well, yeah, they're not responding to bullet fire.
Yeah, no, I would I'd probably do the side.
I think you listen to the book. It's a $40 crucifix. For some reason, that was an important description of it.
That's expensive in the 70s.
81.
Maybe it was made of silver.
That's what I'm thinking.
Good point.
And blessed. It's expensive to get a crucifix blessed.
No, it's not.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to dive into Dennis's research on the property, the traps they set to see what they can discover about this barrage of strange creatures. And we'll get to the conclusion and final thoughts on this ongoing phenomenon. It is ongoing.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll see you in a second.
Pick up.
Hi. Thanks for calling the Believe Hole Hotline.
Thank God.
Got a spooky story?
I do. It's all real. They're outside
No one's available to take your call. But you can leave your story at the sound of the tone.
No.
Thanks for calling.
They're outside right now.
Have a spooky
They're
day.
outside. No.
Do you have a spooky story? Don't wait until it's too late. Give us a call. BeliefHole.com.
Welcome back
Welcome back. Welcome back to the farmland.
to the nightmare.
Do we know the name of the family, by the way?
I believe, I'll have to double check this, but I believe it was, he wanted to keep it anonymous.
That's right. And we know some first names, but not.
It's Robert's family. So Robert is the guy. I don't think that's a pseudonym, but I'll double check.
Although I guess the police reports are available, so we could probably find that. But
It's true. I really want to go up there and see if the kid who saw the face in the window, he'd probably be like in his 50s by now.
if he's still around,
Yeah, it'd be really cool to get an interview.
put it on the list. Okay, so Dennis Pilichis, the author of this encounter, at some point he'd left, but he comes back on July 4th with another researcher, Kathy Bixler, and they find that the family is still keeping watch on the roof. And this is interesting. So there's a strange fog, they say. Quote, strange fog began appearing over the top of the house. Nowhere else.
That's familiar.
Its significance is unknown.
Weird.
But that just reminds you of like the Fortean fogs we've covered.
Yeah.
I think it's also poignant that it's forming on the only part of the property where,
On the roof.
where they've been protecting themselves.
Yeah. I'd be worried like something's going to come out of the fog when I'm up there.
Right. Or is it just like to kind of provide cover for whatever is out
It's
there?
like an interdimensional smoke bomb.
Exactly.
Did you guys say who did these pictures?
Oh,
So that is a man named, is it Levy or Levy?
El Blazy?
Blazy. Yeah, he actually, I forget how he got connected. Yeah, he's no slouch. He's actually got permanent installations in the Cleveland Museum of Art.
But yeah, he is a local. I think that's how he got involved in this case.
Right.
Interesting.
We'll have these in the show notes, but I love the imagery in here.
He must have believed him to some degree to have.
Oh, yeah.
I think he was also a researcher.
Oh, was he? I didn't know that. But yeah, I love that. It's almost like you can see illustrations of these really intense scenes, like where the guy's getting beamed in the head by the glowing ball and they're shooting off the roof. There's some really good images.
Pretty intense visuals.
Yeah.
It seems like the guy with the rifle in this picture is not really doing his job that well. He's staring off into oblivion as his friend's getting zapped.
He's not noticing the UFO above.
That's right before he shoots it.
Exactly. Yeah. Then he fires, right? And then the thing goes dark.
That guy's shooting a paralytic ray at his son.
So many weird things. Like, and then that little like cigar box that goes over the roof of the house. It reminds me of like a drone you'd see today, kind of. Except, of course, it doesn't respond to gunshot. And it's this 1981.
Oh, and glass. That's another reason why it seems just like a weird dimensional overlap, because they have this weird, like almost steampunk. You don't think of like glass falling out of a UFO when you shoot it. This is like a weird flying contraption.
Well, he did say it sounded like glass breaking, but nothing, he didn't see anything happen except for the light going out.
That's true.
So we don't know what happened.
Maybe they're just playing sound effects for fun, like banana peel slip sounds.
Like from Wet Hot American Summer.
He just throws the glass.
It's not just the sound of glass breaking. It's the sound of like
specifically that glass throw.
It just doesn't match. That's what we're saying.
No, exactly.
That's a lot of the stories. The physics don't seem to work normally.
This falls smack into high strangeness. Jumps out of the paranormal pot and right into the cauldron of high strangeness, where it just goes a little beyond.
Well said. Okay, so at this point, July 6th and 7th, more researchers arrive. Dennis's colleague, Willard McIntyre, he is from Marson Group out of Maryland, which is, I'm not sure what the acronym means, but it's some sort of concerned ufologist network. He arrives with another researcher, James Carnes. This is interesting. Willard was actually heading to Mount St. Helens to investigate, what you might guess, Bigfoot sightings, which we've touched on before.
Right.
Especially in this time period out west around Mount St. Helens. So Dennis debriefs him, and as they get close to the house, they find a barbed wire fence around the property. Apparently, according to the family, large black figures had been coming close to the windows. And so they decided to set up a perimeter fence. This is when they actually found 5 toed impressions, 18 inches long, near the window in the front yard and by the driveway. There had also been more shootings while the researchers were away. And this takes us to our researchers getting a chance for the first time to get some firsthand experience with these critters. The evening of July 6th and 7th, we have our researchers' encounters. And guys, for brevity, this accounting I've rewritten from Dennis's account. It made it third person just because I'm summarizing some aspects of it, but I haven't included anything that wasn't in the text. Willard and Dennis decided to stay the night. They didn't know what to expect, having not seen anything firsthand yet. Family members were loading guns for another all-night stakeout on the roof. One family member reported red glowing eyes in the back woodline. Dennis, Willard, 2 family members, and a friend went out back. Dennis had a hard time making out the forms initially, attributing it to his night vision compared to the expert hunters. Then they all had an intense experience. A glowing form stepped out of the woodline on the other side of the field. The 3 family members fired upon it, hitting it. It looked like it fell into the high grass. They ran toward the area, climbing over an electric fence. They found the area with grass smashed down and a path leading away, quote, as if something had dragged itself away into the woods. No human or animal had been there to create these effects. Then Willard and Dennis decided to throw rocks into the woodline, hoping for a reaction. And suddenly, a rock came flying out of the woods over their heads, landing near the family members, approximately 15 feet behind them. More red glowing eyes were seen. Activity shifted to the east woodline, close to the house. Fearful, they ran back to the house. They all saw red glowing eyes peering from the woodline. Occasionally, a form with a white glow was seen, as if illuminated. Numerous sets of eyes were seen throughout the night. They seemed to favor a dense area with a broken dead tree trunk. That's interesting. Then Dennis used a high-beam flashlight from the highest part of the roof, aiming the light for the family members to shoot. Willard attempted to tape record. The best sighting they all had was when 3 sets of big red glowing eyes were observed. One left, one behind the dead tree, one lower. The bigger creature was over 12 feet tall. It stepped out and stood to the left of the tree. And Dennis's flashlight beam was right on it. Its body cast a shadow on the tree trunk. Black hair was seen shining. Everyone fired at it. All the critter did was turn sideways with a strange sort of motion and move out of the beam of light. The shooting did not appear to have any sort of effect at all. By 3 a.m., they were confused and frustrated. After the bigger creature moved, the author had the light on the face of the lower creature, whose eyes were almost on the ground for almost a minute or 2. Dennis reports, quote, "I will never forget this experience." He then saw it sort of crawl away, back into the woods. Daybreak came, and the manifestations stopped.
It gets to a point where you want to change your tactic. You want to prove these things are real, potentially kill them, or at least defend yourself. How do you do that? Well, you have to become the hunter, or in this case, the trapper.
Let's get to the experiment.
This leads us to the rabbit trap experiment.
This is cool.
So by mid-August, creature activity had expanded west of the property near the Grand River. Robert reported additional livestock deaths, property damage. He said, quote, "Another chicken had been killed, its backside having been bitten off."
Weird.
So not eaten for food.
In one bite?
Just like a warning or some sort of weird black magic sacrifice. A gas well mining device had been destroyed. It is interesting, too. We talk about the disturbing of the land, if that woke this phenomena up.
Yeah.
It seems to be one of the targets of this phenomena. Quote, it was learned later that 3 times an electronic control box that monitors pressure on one of Robert's gas wells had been smashed in. The 6 D-cell batteries damaged as if squeezed. Now, I don't know if you guys know what D-cell batteries are, you kids out there, but they're pretty thick batteries.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it matters the thickness. You can't squeeze a battery.
Well, I can squeeze a AA, but
Okay.
What?
right in half. But these are hard.
Jeremy, come on.
So then Robert loses hot water, which is always a bummer. His family is irritated at that. They hear noises in the basement, so Robert goes downstairs.
That was cool.
Dennis records, quote, Robert had lost his hot water, gone down into the basement, and found his fuse box smashed in. So now they're inside the house. The damage was mysterious in that it looked like something had put finger-like impressions into the box, smashing the fuses. So
You see one of these giant hairy creatures just slowly pushing in.
just pushing in and then crinkling,
Guess I'll fix him.
Really slowly.
Yeah, just smiling.
just the metal kind of creaking.
Sparks are flying.
So at this time, they believe the Robert son may have some sort of connection.
Assuming Robert's son, that's what you're saying?
Yeah. Some sort of connection to these things or
Psychic connection.
the events. Yeah. But so they wanted to keep things quiet around him.
Why did they believe that? Was that because he had that counter before all this started with the thing?
He kind of had that first encounter in the window that they kind of brushed off initially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just at the time he's going through stuff, there might be more in the book about it.
Puberty.
And might be some connections with these things or the phenomena.
They've got hair. He's growing hair.
What is a ghost that goes through puberty?
Booberty.
Ha!
That doesn't make sense.
I know, but it was along those lines.
Say, what is a
I
ghost?
take that back.
What's a ghost coming of age called?
Yeah.
Booberty.
What do you call when a ghost turns 13?
Booberty. Okay, we got it.
Oh, good Lord.
You guys can have that joke out there.
We lost 3 patrons.
If you tell that joke, please don't credit us. If you tell that at a party.
It could be refined a little bit.
Get to the bunny experiment.
Okay. So that's it. They're ready. They want to lure these things they want. Firsthand physical evidence, photographic proof. They've got no other options at this point. You guys remember the scene with the goat in Jurassic Park?
Oh, yes.
He's gonna eat the goat? Excellent.
What's the matter, kid? You never had lamb chops?
I happen to be a vegetarian.
T-Rex doesn't want to be fat, he wants to hunt. Just suppress 65 million years of gut instinct.
Swap that out for rabbits. And this is what's about to go down. So Dennis, our author, lead investigator, with a few other folks, local farm owner, family friend named Cliff, another researcher, Larry,
And Willard, who we talked about.
the whole crew, they hatch this plan. They decide they're going to get rabbits and they're going to stake them alive so they can't move, like the goat in Jurassic Park, in a freshly plowed field. Now,
rabbits.
one of the creepy aspects is, I'll just read you this quote. Quote, inside the rabbits would be capsules of cyanide. These capsules could only be broken if the rabbit is eaten alive. So they have poisoned the rabbits, the living rabbits, with cyanide pills.
Hoping to poison these critters, basically.
Yeah, if one of these giant critters eats one of these rabbits, it will, in their hope, kill the critter. And then they'll have evidence. So they tie these rabbits down to heavy milk crates using 1,200-pound parachute cord. So the rabbits aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
They also get the idea to play rapid distress audio calls, looped in the background.
It's like rabbits squealing and stuff.
Yeah.
Basically.
Again, they got their guns. They got a cylinder of hydrofluoric acid. I guess they're pulling out all the stops, whatever might come with them. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, a crucifix for this occasion.
Can't be too careful.
Yeah. So they wanted to provoke a response and escalate the situation in order to, or Dennis at least, and Willard, the researchers did, maybe not the family so much, but they wanted an up-close encounter. They needed proof. They hoped for photographic opportunity, but were prepared for confrontation.
Let's hear the experiment. At about 9:30 p.m., just as we had set up everything and were ready to go, all hell broke loose. There were 5 of us: myself, Larry Peters, Willard McIntyre, Robert, and a friend of the family named Cliff. Almost all of us from different locations saw big red glowing eyes coming up on the wood line. as many as 6 sets at one time. At the same time this was going on the wood line directly in back of the house, white glowing lights could be seen. The, quote, phantom flashlight beams could also be seen flashing in the woods. These phantom flashlight beams are directly associated with the first appearance of creatures in black forms. Sometimes they are white, other times blue. They've been seen numerous times throughout the Rome encounters from the very start. The 6 sets of red glowing eyes came up to the wood line as if they were going to make a dash for one of the rabbits. We all got a little panic-stricken at this point, as this was the closest we had come to feeling we were honestly being invaded. Thankfully, the manifestations leveled off at about 10:30 p.m. At one point, Willard saw a black form step out of the woodline opening in the back of the property. It did not look any bigger than a normal human body. Willard yelled to the form,
Are you human or animal?
The form responded with some grunting sounds. Willard fired. The form screamed and yelled and ran off into the woods. After hearing all this, I ran back to where the others were and asked what the heck was going on. Willard and I walked back to the woodline opening, hoping to find footprints, when we clearly heard something in the woods whimpering, as if in pain. By now, it was 1 a.m. Some of the rabbits were making noise, and we were afraid that the activity out back was a distraction to get us away from the rabbit trap. We all gathered together near the house, as usual, frustrated and confused, and totally overwhelmed by what we were once again witnessing. By the time we all got back to the house, dawn was approaching. Having had little sleep, not expecting much activity come daylight, myself, Willard, and Larry went back to my house to get some sleep. Robert took his wife to work, looking out into the field to make sure the rabbits were still in place. They were still there. A close eye had to be kept on the rabbits, as they still were very dangerous due to the cyanide capsules still inside them. When we returned to the house, we had to wake everyone up, more or less. Willard went out into the field to kill the rabbits, and found to his surprise that the rabbit furthest from the road on the left was gone. Excitement and concern spread over all of us, and we slowly and carefully worked our way out into the rabbit trap area. Just in case the creatures had something to do with this, we didn't want to go and destroy any prints or ground effects that might be present. The left rabbit was gone. The metal milk crate it was tied to was over on its side. The 1,200-pound test parachute cord was snapped in half. The rope looked like it had been exploded out, and a mysterious deep impression was found next to the crate. It looked like the front part of a large 5-toed foot. It was in very deep into the ground. There were Bigfoot-type prints, 5-toed, all around the crate with the missing rabbit. Some prints measured 18 inches long.
Damn, almost 2 feet.
Let's forget the 10 to 12 foot tall.
Yeah. You got to be able to support that body with long feet.
That's right. Go see Al Bundy. Get those shoes fitted.
Wow, that's a reference.
Sorry, it's a weird reference.
Peg! We said it at the exact same time.
Yeah, we did.
What was the neighbor's name?
Jefferson.
Jefferson.
He was referenced in the last episode.
Really?
That's bizarre.
That is weird. Yeah, I referenced him. I made a really dumb joke about Al Bundy's Jefferson.
Oh,
I
yeah.
forget what that was in relation to.
Marcy was from Fright Night.
Fright Night.
Yeah, she was the
And
love
she was
interest.
a young lady.
That was seduced by Jerry Dandridge.
Gary Busey.
Gary is not as cool vampire name.
That's his werewolf name or that's his vampire name?
If you heard the show for more than a year, you'd know we're talking about Fright Night and
Fright Night, yes.
Yeah.
classic films of our youth.
Welcome to Fright Night.
If you haven't seen it, it's something you need to put on your horror list.
It is maybe my favorite horror movie.
You're so cool, Brewster.
Yeah, he's actually in our show.
That's right, in the intro.
Yeah, he's a cackle at the beginning.
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster. I can't stand it.
Evil Ed.
Evil Ed.
Anywho,
So what was, break it down real fast here. So what was the end results of the experiment? Did they take any of the rabbits?
yeah, one of the rabbits was gone. and they found the parachute cord it was connected to. And there's an image of this in the show notes, a description of what it may have looked like.
It's so awesome.
When one of these things was absconding with the rabbit, but just snapping that cord, 1,200-pound test parachute. And so
humans can't do that.
Yeah. So Dennis, the author and researcher, he was going to a forensic lab for apparently some unrelated business, but he had the cord with him and he had it analyzed. And they came out and said it could not have been cut with a knife. It had not been chewed. And strangely, the outer skin of the rope, or the cord, had weakened before breaking. And the rope of this strength, quote, cannot be snapped apart by humans, as a normal person lacks the strength. So something with two hands and a very powerful grip snapped this thing. But I would also say it is weird, like, yeah, these are dangerous rabbits because they have
cyanide in them.
Cyanide capsules inside them. What if they did somehow get loose and then someone else traps them, hunts them, and then cooks them up?
Well, I think he said they'd have to be eaten live for the cyanide capsule to, I guess, break down in the right way.
Yeah, but that seems still a little risky to be putting out like cyanide capsules.
Yeah, but your desperate times call for desperate measures, Jeremy.
That's true.
This is a
no judgment.
Serious Bigfoot problem they have.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
At this point, TNT might be advisable.
There's freaking Bigfoot in our backyard.
I just think about the idea of finding a cyanide in a rabbit.
Poor rabbits. Look at that little sad one and looking at the other two. Like, what's happening?
Oh, yeah. Where are my friends going? Big hairy men are taking them.
So that's the rabbit experiment. It was not a success. They did not capture any photographs.
They didn't find an ODing Bigfoot critter in the woods?
They got a footprint, though, didn't they?
Yeah, there was a footprint. So the second crate, so it looks like the crate, I think, maybe closest to the wood line, potentially. It seems like these creatures didn't want to come too far to the wood line, but they grabbed the one, then the next cage over, or milk carton over. The rabbit was still there, but it looked like it had been picked up because it had kind of a gash in its stomach from what would have been made by like a claw, and maybe it had been squeezed, but it was alive. But they found a footprint there, John. Yeah, it was a 5-toed Bigfoot-like footprint. So what's the deal with these three-toed entities? Are the 3 toes belonging to something else? Do they belong to the shadow humanoids? Or are these things switching feet?
Wait, so are those the pictures of the cast? Is that like they put a cast in the ground?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
They pour in a solution and it hardens and then they pull it out and the dirt is what's
crazy.
left on there. Yeah.
I wish I should really know what that's called.
And they got 40 of those prints around the property.
40? Really? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Pretty insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
A very thin middle part.
Yeah. And there is something that mentioned that I kind of had skipped, but basically they were claw-like, the toes, as you can see there. And there's, I guess, long and hooked. Some of the prints they found, they had another toe that was kind of like hooked. I don't know. It's very strange. Twisted heel with scuff marks. Notice that in each of these prints, the heels are kind of twisted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they said there was a swirling motion with some of the footprints, right?
No, I think that was a swirling motion around the vegetation where the footprints came out of. It was almost as if the vegetation swirled inward from some energetic property.
Oh, weird.
There's an illustration of that too. I forgot to grab, but it's really interesting how that's described. As if like when these things are going through the area, they're some sort of
vacuum,
electromagnetic or something, but causing the straw in the grass to curl inwards around the footprints.
Oh yeah.
Really strange.
What is interesting with the blue and white lights and then the odors, there is a possible connection with some sort of electromagnetic
for sure
phenomena, maybe interdimensional.
Yes.
But not too far from here. This is where that one thing I mentioned earlier comes in with, I think, some sort of mutation or something. So our author Dennis was contacted by, I believe, a security guard in a neighboring community who was contacted by a lady whose grandson had a very intense experience with something similar. This is just north of Rome Township in Rock Creek. So Dennis gets this information. He's like, okay, I got to talk to her. He contacts the young man who had this experience, and he also checked on the family's background. Family has been in this area for years. They're respected in the community. The guy himself who had the experience is apparently intelligent, never been in any sort of trouble, had a good reputation in his community, so unlikely to be any kind of hoax. It would be very unexpected for this family. And he goes on to say, here is what the young man told me. It was a Friday night, about 12 midnight, during mid-June 1981. The moon was out, and it was a clear, dry night. The young man had on a regular basis taken a shortcut from his home to his grandparents' house via an old railroad track cutting through the deep woods. The actual railroad line had been taken out, leaving a gravel path about 15 feet wide, with dense woods on either side. This particular railroad path went from south to north for many, many miles. There's a very old graveyard nearby, as well as numerous gas and oil wells. On this particular night, he was walking down the tracks when he started hearing some sort of weird noises, like grunts and wheezing, coming from alongside him in the woods. He kept on walking, got up to a large swampy area, and heard the same sort of sounds behind him about 20 feet. He stopped, turned around, and saw a big, black, ugly-haired creature about 9 feet tall. It looked to him like an overgrown gorilla, with long arms hanging below the waist and real long legs. The creature was actually only about 20 feet away when he stopped and looked back. He was very sure of the distance during the interview. He had a single-shot .22 gun with him, but he knew from the size and looks of something that big that the .22 would have little or no effect. He took off, running down the railroad path. The creature took off also, actually following behind him about 20 feet at a fast walk. He could hear the creature walking behind him as if he was very heavy, like someone stomping his feet. He started to slow up a bit to catch his breath. When he did so, the critter would start making those weird noises again. At this point, the young man figured if the creature had wanted to get him when he slowed down, it would have had him for sure. So he stopped. When he stopped, the creature stopped, about 15 feet behind him. The creature started once again making the same sounds, so the young man took off running again down the railroad tracks. The creature once again paced him at a fast walk, keeping up with him with ease. By this time, the young man had reached a motorcycle path he had made into a cornfield off the track, which led directly to his grandparents' house. He took off down the path into the cornfield. He looked back and saw that the creature did not follow him into the field, but stayed on the railroad tracks. The entire chase took about 5 minutes total. He arrived at his grandmother's house very upset, sweating, and out of breath. In interviewing the grandmother, she confirmed the genuine state of confusion and distress the young man was in when he arrived.
Okay, so similar things there. And this is how far? This is pretty close to Rome Township.
Yeah, it's right up a road, Rock Creek. I mean, this sounds pretty much, for it not to be the same thing happening in the same area. And in that area, you had similar instances of hearing strange like bird calls in the woods area, and you always have that connection with...
Oh, that's typical, yeah.
With Sasquatch-like creatures. Again there, the author Dennis, Willard, and Larry went to this site and found, again, 3 toed footprints. Also found a nearby tree twisted and broken 12 feet up, which you see with Sasquatch alleged sign in the woods. Like, why is this tree snapped, this healthy-looking tree snapped and twisted, pointing a direction? Almost like some native tribes used to do. You could argue that maybe that's what this is, some sort of signaling, like the path goes this way, here's where we're migrating. Well, they used to bend like trees or something.
Mm-hmm.
Sound familiar?
Kind of.
Oh, never mind.
Yes, many Native American tribes practice tree bending, intentionally shaping young trees so they would grow with distinctive curves or angles to serve as trail markers, boundary indicators, or pointers to water, food sources, or sacred sites. These are often referred to today as trail trees or marker trees.
But anyway, I did want to get, in his own words, Dennis's sort of conclusionary thoughts, at least some of them, for the end of this episode. So this comes from the report, quote, "For lack of a better term, these, quote, Bigfoot critters and the overlapping UFO activity exhibit a behavior which cannot now be explained or described in terms of known physical principles. There are paranormal occurrences taking place, and they are functioning beyond what should occur if only the known laws of cause and effect are operating." Again, much like Skinwalker Ranch, that would happen a decade later. The, quote, "invasion now taking place in northern Ohio is only part of a greater picture. The same picture is playing in many rural towns in the United States, like a broken record. Identical things are taking place. What does it all mean? It means common folk in rural America are literally under siege by a phenomena that cannot be trapped, shot, poisoned, photographed, or hunted. Yet they are driven from their homes, are having their animals killed, and experience great fear over it all. There are times when these creatures are seen, yet leave no footprints. When footprints are found, they start from nowhere and end nowhere. Strange prints have been found in very hard ground and in very soft ground nearby. The impressions impacted at the same depth. That's interesting. Sometimes when creatures are seen visually and they are photographed, their image does not appear on the film. The three-toed footprints are almost always distorted, with a strange twist at the heel, leaving scuff marks behind. It is obvious that not all data could be included in a report like Night Siege, without turning it into a 100-page or so report. There are many more things to be said and researched, and indeed there are. Yeah, pretty crazy.
That's very strange.
Interesting.
What I think is interesting is that Dennis mentions this too, is that at the very end of this entire document, there is a section, it's a list of incidents supporting this sort of paraphysical hypothesis that these ape-like entities are hit by gunfire, no responses, all kinds of stuff, the connections to, flying saucers. Again, this is like, in this list, he's referencing 1960s and 70s alone. I think there's 30 accounts within just this list, but it compares all the same stuff. Creatures with red glowing eyes, three toes, robot-like beings, phantom figures, animal mutilation.
Look, the world is full of these kind of things. Look at this. Black masses, mutilations.
Animal mutilation, animal attacks, vanishing tracks, strange lights, cryptic messages, which again, we didn't talk about that, but there were like voices heard like from the sky that was like,
yeah,
you can't stop this. But the point is, and his point throughout this entire piece that he's written, is that there's dozens and dozens of similar reports around the country throughout the 1960s and 70s. So not an isolated case. And as we've said before, and as you've heard us cover before, similar sounding cases, and you're starting to see that this is a much bigger phenomenon than we thought it was when we started out looking into the red-eyed sort of creature stuff.
Yeah.
Just crazy. It's just crazy.
It's widespread. It's so widespread that I don't know why we haven't seen them yet. Although this seems like to be something that happens
in flaps
if you're outside a lot in wooded areas and in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
I just feel like things they don't come around like they used to with the reports we cover.
Well, there's too much Wi-Fi in the air.
Maybe that's it.
It's got to be it. 5G, bro.
5G. It could be.
Don't want to get around that stuff.
Maybe that's why we've developed 5G, to actually keep these things out.
That's some deep rabbit hole stuff right there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the 1973 thing kept popping up in this thing, too. We had to do an episode on that year.
Right.
But who knows? Like, you know how the Earth passes through whatever it is where we get those meteorites every so often? What if, like, dimensions work like that, where you once in a while line up with certain, like, so every, like, 30 years you get some reports of giant red-eyed critters running around with phantom horses and...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what if there's just, like, it lines up certain ways throughout time because rotations of dimensions? I don't know.
Well, in that case, we're about due, guys. So keep your eyes out.
We are.
Get your cameras out.
Snap.
Definitely a pretty crazy story.
Yeah. One that has slipped through the cracks. I haven't not heard of this before.
It's so close to where we grew up.
I know. That's what I like about it. It's right in our backyard, basically.
Frustratingly, in the introduction, he does say basically that there's a lot more to the story and that it'll have to be dealt with at another time because at the time they were still, I guess, dealing with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When he put this book out, there's supposed to be cassette tape recordings.
He was going to do regular newsletter updates, I read.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't look into if he ever was able to do that or not. I kind of just used this as my only
as a
resource.
Yeah, I looked up a little bit, but it did seem like there was not a follow-up with the actual, because I tried to find the original audio recording from the cassette tapes that he said.
That would have been cool.
He had recorded. We do have some photographic evidence in the writings, but yeah. And there's at one point, one of the creatures got so close that allegedly one of the guys stabbed it in the chest. And there was a UFO abduction at one point, but that's information that did not get out. So I don't know what happened or if there was ever another follow-up. If you guys out there know, let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll do a follow-up.
Thank you for joining us in Rome, Ohio, the summer of 1981.
Rome Township.
This was a fun deep dive for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Just when you think you've heard everything, you get phantom glowing horses. And
this one had it all.
It had it all and then some.
Everything but a leprechaun.
Even shadow people.
working together to get those rabbits.
What a lucky family.
Sure they felt that way.
What do they do in their off time? They're all hanging out in their UFO and shadow people and the red-eyed critters, just like playing pinochle.
It's just crazy that just the visualization of like researchers coming back to check on them. They're still on the roof like days later. Like, oh, we're just, under siege. You guys want like tea? Just such a crazy like visual that like, yeah, this is your property. What are you going to do?
So Tremors.
Gotta protect it.
Gotta fight back.
That's right. But what else can you do? I guess you could leave.
Honey, grab the rabbits.
Kids, put your pants on.
Get out of here.
Going outside.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed your time with us. You are the lifeblood of the whole. So thank you for being members.
Yeah, we do appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
And have a red-eyed critter night.
All right.